right? Just a regular team. We already know this league can't function in a normal way when asked about players on said team. We're shutting that down. We can't have that kind of question. Wait a minute. What? We got a couple of things. We got Angel Reese getting cooked by her very own teammates. A lot of people are putting the over-under on about 22 games before Angel Reese absolutely implodes the Atlanta Dream.
Angel Reese was officially introduced as a member of the Atlanta Dream, and her introductory press conference came with an unexpected moment when her new teammates were asked to describe what it was like facing her when she was on the Chicago Sky. The responses were candid and generated significant attention. One Dream player said she had some of her best performances against Chicago, openly telling Reese she had loved facing that team.
Atlanta Dream. And we got this. Let's start here, and then we'll get to Aliyah Boston very quickly, because Aliyah Boston, she done passed Asia Wilson for the most money in the league. Aliyah Boston? Question mark? Okay. That's cool. That's cool. I ain't hating on her. Caitlin Clark reacted to it. It's pretty bad when the Phoenix Mercury got the best marketing plan for Caitlin Clark in the entire league. She showed up more.
Another acknowledged Reese's rebounding dominance from the opposing side, saying she simply stopped contesting boards at the free throw line because battling a post player as a guard was not worth the effort. Both framed it as friendly ribbing while emphasizing they were glad to have her as a teammate, but the exchange was widely noted as an unusually direct moment for a press conference setting. The Atlanta roster, as currently constructed, has attracted attention for its length and physicality.
She showed up more prominently on this graphic than she did the Indiana Fever's ticket selling graphic. What are we doing? What? I feel like the Fever had completely lost the plot. They lost the script. Right here, Phoenix Mercury putting up this biggest show in town. Kaylee Copper, Caitlin Clark. Thursday, July 9th. I mean, it's just like...
Several observers noted that a Chicago Sky versus Atlanta Dream matchup could develop into one of the more compelling games on the calendar this season, with both franchises having added meaningful talent rather than rebuilding. Elsewhere, the Aliyah Boston contract story continued drawing reactions. Caitlin Clark responded on social media by simply retweeting the Shams Charania report confirming the 4-year, $6.3 million deal, the largest total contract in WNBA history, surpassing Asia Wilson's previous record.
Kaylee Copper, Caitlin Clark. Thursday, July 9th. I mean, it's just like they get it. They get it. It's crazy. Absolutely crazy. But it's such a crazy ass look that an opposing team has got a better idea of how to handle this situation and the marketing of the superstar, not just a superstar, the superstar. By the way,
the congratulations from across the Caitlin Clark fan base were widespread and visible, a dynamic that some found notable given the ongoing media narrative characterizing that fan base as hostile toward other players in the league. One detail that caught attention amid the Fever's ticket-selling push was a promotional graphic released by the Phoenix Mercury ahead of a July matchup featuring Kaylee Copper and Clark. The Mercury's marketing material placed Clark prominently and carried the message that whether fans had been following the sport for a decade or just recently discovered it, greatness was happening now and everyone was welcome.
By the way, didn't disrespect fans for how long they've been fans. Whether you've been here for 10 years or 10 minutes. Greatness is happening right now and you're invited. Wow. Well, I mean, that's sort of refreshing. What in the world? That's so unlike any WNBA franchise right now. They hate the new fans. Sham Charana. Right there. God is great. Let's go.
The contrast with how the Fever handled their own promotional content was pointed out repeatedly. The competing team's graphic was seen as a more effective and welcoming use of Clark's star power than what the Fever's own social media had produced around the same period. On the contract outlook more broadly, speculation is building about what Clark's eventual deal will look like. With Boston now set at the Supermax level and the CBA framework allowing for escalating values through the end of the agreement, some analysts have suggested Clark's contract could ultimately reach into the $10 to $12 million range over its full term if structured to run through the end of the current CBA cycle.
Great, let's go. Aliyah Boston, Indiana Fever 3-time WNBA All-Star. Aliyah Boston signing a 4-year, $6.3 million contract, giving her the richest total in league history. Zach Miller of WME Basketball tells Shams, Alexa Philippou, and Kendra Andrews. Wow. How about that?
Stephanie White's public remarks heading into training camp have raised concerns about how Caitlin Clark will be used when the season opens, and the language coming out of those interviews carries an uncomfortable similarity to what was said around this same time a year ago. White's comments centered on Clark's return and how the coaching staff plans to handle her workload during camp. The coach acknowledged that Clark had prepared diligently throughout the offseason and pointed to her time with USA Basketball in March as a genuine advantage. She arrived with recent competitive experience, feel for the game, and conditioning that most players entering camp would not have.
How about that? That's awesome. A lot of congratulations from a lot of faces that I know, beloved faces in the Caitlin Clark fandom. I'm always hearing how vicious the fandom is. Boy, there sure seems to be a lot of congratulations going around for a bunch of alleged racists. What's going on here? Media got it wrong. They always get it wrong. Caitlin Clark.
Those are legitimate positives, but then came the language around managing her practice time, being deliberate about the type of reps she receives, and treating the 4-4 game regular season schedule as a reason to bring her along carefully rather than letting her operate at full capacity from day one. The difficulty with that framing is that Clark herself addressed her readiness on multiple occasions during the FIBA qualifying window.
Clark, absolutely congrats, AB. People getting paid. Is there a chance that Caitlin Clark somehow, she going to end up getting like $15 million? Is there a chance? By the time they spread, I could see them giving her a contract all the way through the end of this CBA and then escalating the money each year till the end of the CBA.
She was direct about her physical condition, her confidence, and her mindset entering the competitive stretch. She spoke about playing fast, pushing tempo, and leaning into what she does best as a creator. The results on the floor matched what she said. She was the standout performer across the entire competition, earned MVP recognition, and showed the full range of her game in transition, in pick and roll, and as a decision maker in half-court settings.
Pretty much signaling to us that this was Kelsey's team. Now, a lot of people saying Caitlin Clark could be possibly getting ready to break some bad news to a lot of Indiana Fever front office and fans. Could she demand a trade after this year? I don't know. But the way they moving, it looked like that they are preparing themselves for if so. I just got to be honest. Now, Stephanie White did an interview yesterday.
That body of evidence makes the cautious framing from the coaching staff harder to accept at face value. A player who just delivered that level of performance over a sustained international stretch does not need her practice volume carefully rationed before a regular season begins. The load management argument might hold weight for a player returning from a significant physical setback or working their way back from limited activity.
Yesterday. Now, in this interview, we ain't going to play it all because we already reacted to a bunch of it. I want you guys to hear something. Listen to this real quick. And after I play this, let me know how y'all feel.
Riddick, the other day when he said there won't be an update, right, until there's an update.
Right. I mean, I get it, right? It's that catch-22, right? Because people want to ask, but at the same time, there's no. But having said that, you know, what is the time period or the acclimation, if you will, not just for her, but also the teammates around, or although is it?
Clark spent March competing at an elite level and winning MVP. The circumstances do not support the same treatment. What sharpens the concern is the context from earlier in the offseason, when White described Kelsey Mitchell as the player most capable of generating her own offense without external support, and framed her return as the organization's top priority in free agency.
But also the teammates around, or although, is it advantage because you have a lot of new faces, so it's new for everybody?
Yeah, I think it's new for everybody. I think we got to be smart. She has worked her butt off this whole offseason to prepare herself. We have an added advantage in that she played games in March, right, with USA Basketball. And so she has game exposure. She has game pace. She has game rhythm. She has game timing. And so we have an advantage. But we also want to be smart. She doesn't need every rep in practice. Like we want to continue to ramp her up. You know, it's a long season.
Positioning Mitchell as the offensive centerpiece, while simultaneously discussing Clark's rep reduction points toward a specific philosophical direction, one where the system distributes offensive responsibility across multiple players, rather than centering everything through Clark's decision-making. The counter-argument is that sharing offensive load reduces predictability and makes the team harder to scheme against.
In practice, like we want to continue to ramp her up. You know, it's a long season, 44 games, and we play a heavy cadence of games in a week. And so we want to be smart in camp and make sure we I don't want to say ease her into it because she.
Now, this right here ain't sit right with me. Because this is insinuating to me that she plans on doing something a little different with Caitlin Clark. Now, Caitlin Clark stated during FIBA World Cup.
That has merit in theory. The practical challenge is that Clark's ceiling as a playmaker is substantially higher than any distribution-based system the Fever are likely to run.
World Cup basketball, she was 100% ready to go. I think we heard her say that numerous times, bro. Hell, we seen Caitlin Clark ball. Why is we limiting Caitlin Clark for the start of the season? Why? Or going into training camp? Why is you limiting her? Because you're trying to get the ball out of her hand, bro.
The version of this team that caused the most damage last season, the stretch where Clark had broad creative freedom and the offense ran through her reads, produced a level of performance this roster cannot replicate through a more balanced approach. White is a more thoughtful coach than her predecessor, and the team's overall structure has improved.
She's trying to do everything in her power to make sure Caitlin Clark does not reach the level which we already know she's there. Judging off what we've seen in FIBA World Cup basketball, Caitlin Clark was ready to go, and she stated to the world that she was ready to go. She looked it like she was ready to go. Hell, she won the MVP. She was the best player out there in the entire FIBA World Cup basketball. I don't know. Let's finish listening.
She's ready for camp, but
the coaching philosophy has a documented tendency toward caution, toward managing situations rather than leaning into risk, and toward reactive basketball rather than the kind of aggressive pace setting that Clark thrives in. That approach produced solid results in the playoffs last year.
Listening.
She's ready for camp, but we want to make sure that we manage, the reps and what kinds of reps she's getting, just to build her up so that she's ready to go, and we don't have any kind of questions about that.
You know, I got to thinking about this, Stephanie. Stephanie White, the head coach of the Fever, my guest. If situations arise again where people start asking the same question repeatedly and you get to the J.J. Redick level, right?
Yeah.
Then I think you bring your phone and you just hit this. As soon as they ask, you just hit this on your phone, right? There you go.
It also capped what the team was capable of during stretches of the regular season when Clark was not given room to impose her will. Reducing her training camp reps, even for sensible-sounding reasons, is another signal in the same direction.
There you go. You just play that, right?
I agree. Can you have that as like a favorites that just comes up, or is it like Siri play you need to calm down?
Well, then it kind of kills the mystique if you're saying the title, right? Because then everybody can figure out what you're talking about.
Yeah, amen. That's
hey,
true.
in your coaching off season, you obviously were doing both radio and television for, in basketball, the NBA, and a number of areas. What was the best game you saw in the?
So that was some of Stephanie White interview that she did yesterday. Now,
Clark at full capacity with full creative authority is what separates this team from a deep playoff run and a potential title contender. Any organizational decision that drifts away from that ceiling, whether framed as load management, system balance, or cautious ramp-up, works against the team's best interests.